Is democracy founded on reason? Part 5. By James P. Pierce. The idealistic notion of democracy as power to the people can often seem misleading when examined through the lens of how power is actually distributed in society. Voting, a hallmark of democratic participation, is often touted as the primary way individuals exercise their power within a democratic framework. Yet, when you consider what real power looks like, the ability to effect meaningful change in one's own life, voting may seem like a weak form of power in comparison to other mechanisms of influence, such as wealth and economic control. Let's explore this concept. If your right to vote were stripped away today, how much would that really impact your day-to-day life? If you lost the ability to vote in the next election, would your immediate material conditions change? For many, the answer would likely be no. This is because the power to affect your own circumstances often does not come directly from the ballot box but from the economic means you possess, your job, your income, your savings, and your access to resources. Money, in the simplest terms, is a more direct form of power, because it enables you to act and live as you see fit. Contrast this with corporations like Amazon or Walmart, which receive billions of dollars in subsidies annually. These corporations wield tremendous power, not because they vote in the literal sense, but because they are given significant financial resources that allow them to shape policies, fund political campaigns, and influence decision-making at the highest levels of government. Money grants power, often more directly than a vote does. The misuse of democracy and European Christian values. At its core, democracy is supposed to be about enabling the people, all people, to have power. However, the focus on expanding suffrage or increasing voter participation, while important, may miss a fundamental issue: the concentration of economic power. When power is equated primarily with wealth, the notion of democracy begins to look more like an oligarchy, where those with the most financial resources hold the real influence. One of the ways this concentration of power is justified is through the misuse of traditional European Christian values, particularly those that emphasize altruism and charity. Historically, Christianity in Europe emphasized caring for the poor and providing for the less fortunate. These values were once foundational to how societies viewed economic fairness. However, in a modern context, these values have been co-opted or distorted in ways that reinforce unequal power structures. Take, for example, the rhetoric around corporate subsidies. Proponents often justify these subsidies as a means of helping large corporations create jobs, thus benefiting the broader population, a narrative that appeals to the altruistic values of providing for others. However, this type of charity is misused when billions of dollars are funneled to companies that are already profitable, while individual citizens struggle with stagnant wages, rising living costs, and dwindling access to public services. The supposed benefit to society becomes a thin veil for further empowering the already powerful. This misuse of altruism creates a moral justification for the status quo. It appeals to the Christian ideal of self-sacrifice, but in a distorted way. The average citizen is encouraged to accept the idea that supporting massive corporations through their taxes is somehow for the greater good. In reality, this is anti-democratic because it diverts resources that could directly empower individuals and communities, reinforcing the economic power imbalance. A more democratic approach: reallocating power. If we are serious about democracy as power to the people, we need to rethink where that power comes from. Imagine if, instead of funneling billions in subsidies to already wealthy corporations, that money was redirected to the average citizen. Even a small reallocation of resources, say, the $4 billion Amazon receives in subsidies, could put over $1,000 directly into the hands of each citizen. Add to that the billions received by Walmart and other corporations, and the amount could rise to over $20,000 a year for every American. This would represent a real redistribution of power in the form of economic agency. Under such a system, individuals would have the financial means to make real choices in their lives. The disabled, the unemployed, and those who work in low-wage jobs would no longer be entirely dependent on corporate interests or government charity. They would have the power to support themselves, to invest in their own futures, and to make meaningful contributions to society. In other words, this would be a system in which democracy is truly realized not just through voting, but through the direct economic empowerment of the people. Conclusion: reclaiming democracy as economic power. In this ideal vision, democracy is not merely about suffrage or the expansion of voting rights, though these are important aspects of the political process. Rather, it is about real power, the ability to make choices, to live freely, and to have control over one's own life. If economic power is concentrated in the hands of a few, then the democratic promise of power to the people is not being fulfilled. Reallocating the massive subsidies currently given to corporations toward the people would be a step toward realizing this ideal. It is crucial to recognize that the misuse of traditional values, such as altruism and charity, often serves to maintain these unequal power dynamics. While these values are important, they should not be invoked to justify policies that empower the few at the expense of the many. Instead, we should return to the original intent of such values, to uplift the vulnerable and empower the marginalized, ensuring that democracy truly serves the people. In the end, if democracy is about giving power to the people, then it is not socialism to propose that this power should take the form of economic empowerment. Rather, it is the logical extension of the democratic ideal itself.